Guys, we're back. We're back. There's a bit of a debate going around whether it has been 86 weeks or 89 weeks. I don't know, maybe we're not counting that 3 weeks where we flattened the curve or something, but I don't know, 86 weeks, 89 weeks, however long it has been, we are back. We're back. You guys don't sound that excited to be back. Are you excited? I am so excited. There's people online right now probably putting tons of emojis in the chat as well. We are so thankful that you are here with us as well. I know there's so many circumstances that would mean that you can't come out here, so thank you for joining in online. You are a part of this with us all. And do you know what? Kids actually hit capacity today, which is insane. I know my kids have totally missed church so much. They were just amped to get back here. The second we got in the door, they were pulling on my arm to get into kids' church. They could not wait. And so I want to say thank you to our kids team up there. I know that they can hear me. Why don't you shout them down so they can hear you as well? Our kids team are incredible. They somehow turned into a production house over the last 86 weeks. And have been producing incredible online content, but they're back in the rooms as well now, which is awesome. And thank you to every single team member. This place is amazing to come into. We walked in and we got, checked. I felt so safe. I got temperature checked. There's people waving us in as we drove in. So if that was you, if you were on a team tonight, thank you. Why don't you cheer for the people that are on teams here as well? None of this happens without incredible, incredible volunteers. And they do it because they love you. They want you to have a great experience when you come in here. So we just have the most amazing teams. And so on the note of kids being on capacity, if you have a heart for kids, perhaps you might want to sign up so that we can be able to host more families. We don't want to have to turn families away, but it's awesome. Anyway, we're back. You know what? As we're in worship, I felt that it was really important actually today to acknowledge the holy ground that we are standing on in this church. And I know that we have thanked Catch the Fire at our Thursday night live meetings, but something is very significant and special about Sundays as well. So many of you know that pre-pandemic, we were one church in 3 locations. We had 3 different locations around the city of Toronto. Every single one of those locations have shut their doors to churches now, since then. And so it has not been an easy venture to be able to have church again. It has been incredibly painful to watch people across the border, in other cities, be able to hold church. And yet here in Toronto, we still couldn't hold services. And we respect our government and we honor our government. But there is something wrong in this city when we can't hold church services. And so we're trying to change that. We've bought a building. Hello, we own 2 buildings on Geary Avenue. That happened in the pandemic, which is pretty insane. But we're still believing for zoning on those buildings. And there's prayer that needs to happen in that. And there's miracles that need to happen there. And so I want to take this time right now to actually honor Catch the Fire. Because this is not a building that would have come easily. Buildings in this city dedicated to churches do not come without a fight. And so there is a fight that has been fought for this, the fact that this is holy ground, the fact that they have allowed us in here, which is kind of a risk to them. They're letting outside permits in, which not many places are. So I want to thank them. I want to honor them. Why don't we stand up and actually honor them for the sacrifices that they have made to be able to create this. So thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to your teams. Thank you to your pastor. We are so grateful for the ground that you have taken in this city, and we are encouraged to be able to follow in those footsteps. To take a seat. I wasn't planning on saying that, but there is just something incredibly beautiful about ground that has been fought for the kingdom of God and dedicated to the kingdom of God. Cool. So, you guys made it. You're here. You made it through the 86 weeks. I am so glad that you're here. God is so good. We are back, and it's awesome. And you know what? We had reunion. I wanted to give you just a quick little update. I kind of have a lot, I guess, to update you on because it's been a while, I might get to my preach, hopefully, at some point. But you know what? It's just nice to be together. Even if I don't get there, it's still great that you came out today, right? But we're family, and so I wanted to just keep you in the loop, keep you updated on everything. So a couple of weeks ago, we had our reunion event. So we called it reunion because it was kind of like a big family reunion. We all got together. Who was there? There's a few people there. It's good. Awesome. I'm glad that you were there. So we got together, and we were kind of shared the family values again, because just this whole last season, there's been a lot of confusion personally, even with the church. We're who are we? And so we wanted to re-clarify all of that, because you know what? We're really proud of who we are. I actually really love us, not just us as in me. I love us, what we are and what we have created. So we clarified that a little bit. I just wanted to share just a snippet with you in case you weren't there, or it's just a little reminder. But one of the things that we clarified was our values. So our three main values that are kind of our non-negotiables, our this is who we are, this is how we're living our life. There's everything has to filter through this. If it doesn't filter through it, then we're not going to do it. And so, those values up there. I don't have my glasses on, so you're going to have to tell me, are the values up there? Okay, good. They're just scribbles in my eyes. I'm so sorry. So the first one was our life is not ours, but God's. And so this is how we live our life. We live our life in a life laid down mentality. We know that God has given us life, and therefore it is His. So whatever it takes, we are serving others, we are loving others, we live life laid down lives. No selfishness allowed, which is super hard, but it's exciting. We're spirit-filled, and we're down to earth. So we recognize that we are not just these mortal beings, but we have a spirit being. There is a spirit world. This is a spiritual place. There is a spirit in us. And so we recognize that, but we also recognize that it's not there as something weird and spooky, but it's actually something that empowers us, and it's something that we're able to use and help other people with, and not freak people out, but actually empower others as well. So we're spirit-filled, we're down to earth, it's real, it's relevant, it's relatable. And then the last one that we landed on is that we walk on water. And so this comes from that story where Peter steps out of the boat towards Jesus. And I love that it comes from this story because first off in the story is that Jesus doesn't actually call to Peter, but Peter calls to Jesus and then steps out of the boat. And we're those kind of people in this church where we call to Jesus first and we say, can we just come closer to you? What can we do that is risky, that is out of the boat, that is out of our ordinary, that is out of our comfort zone, just to be closer to you, just to experience you more? And that's who we are. We're walk on water people. We don't even need Him to ask us first. We are there. We are stepping into His presence. And so some of these things that we give everything because He did, we're whatever it takes people, we chase the mundane, we go through the roof, which some of you may know, we take obedient steps, unpopular steps, turbulent steps, and risky steps. And this is who we are. We filter our whole entire lives through these values. And we are excited because I love this. I love who we are. I think it's beautiful that this is who we are as a church, and I am so excited for our future and so excited for how these values are going to be working out in the future. Love it. Love who we are. So, a little bit of backstory from Reunion. If you weren't there, ask some of these other great people that put their hands up, what was it all about, and ask them questions, because it's good to find out some of the stuff that happened. But I know that it's been advertised, so I actually do have some time on the clock to share a little bit of a message. It's been 86 weeks that we have all been evaluating our relationships. We have all been isolated with a loved one, whether it's family, whether it's a spouse, children, even friends, roommates. Maybe they're not as loved ones anymore. But it's been 86 weeks of dealing with relationships. And normally in the history of our church, we would speak about relationships kind of, I don't know, once a year-ish. Because you know what? The Bible actually talks a lot about relationships. It's one of the things it talks a lot about. It talks about friendships, talks about family dynamics, talks about husbands and wives, talks about how to raise your children, talks about even workplace relationships, how to serve your employer well, how to be a good employee. It actually talks about all of it. And then for some reason we come into church and it's off limits, let's not talk about any of that. But I think we should. This is the place where we need help. We need God in our relationships. And one thing that our pastor, Pastor Lorne, says is quite often when you are asking somebody how they are, their response is almost always a response in relation to their relationships and how those are doing. So there's a couple of other things like health and finances and those sorts of things that people will answer as well. But quite often, if people's relationships are doing well, they'll say that they are doing well. And if their relationships aren't, they'll share that perhaps they're not doing as well. And so it's a very, very important part of our lives. And so we wanted to talk about it. So we named the series Red Flags because, there are some red flags that happen in relationships. But I wanted to ask you, because it has been 86 weeks, who has started a relationship with a new loved one since we had church last? Anyone? Oh, look at that. Who's gotten engaged or married since we last did church? Yeah, there's a few. You guys met and got engaged in the last. That's good. Good job. Who's had a baby since we? Yeah, there's a bunch. I'm in that club, which is crazy. My daughter is 20 months now. When was she born? We had Sunday service, and then 5 days later she was born, and then everything shut down. And we were like, okay, cool, awesome. So people have had babies, people have gotten married, so there's been changes in relationships. So let's talk about it. Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. We named it red flags because you know exactly what I mean when we say red flags, okay? You know what I mean. You know when that person is talking to you and they're like, oh, I met this new guy and he's so great and he's like this. And then you do this face. Oh, yeah. Or maybe you do this face. You do the awkward face, okay? We all know the awkward face. Everybody has one where you're trying to smile and be happy for the person. But deep down, there's some serious red flags there that you don't want to talk about. But you should, but you don't know how to do it. Maybe someone's talking to you about how they're raising their children and you're like, yeah, that's going to go real well for you in the future. Oh, I'm so happy for your parenting techniques. Is it too real? You're all thinking it. We've all had those awkward face moments. And so why don't we talk about them, the red flags here? Because for me, I believe that actually one of the biggest red flags in relationships is us. It's you. In your relationships, one of the biggest red flags that there could ever be is you. Because you are the only person that you can control. You are the only person that you can change. You are the only person that you can actually make a difference on in that regard. We are actually the biggest red flags in our relationships. Us. So I'm going to address us in this situation. As we go on through this series, I'm sure we'll be talking a lot more about what to look for in a spouse and answer some of those really crazy nitty-gritty questions that you have, but not in this message. You can ask those to your Connect coach this week, your Connect leader. If you're in a Connect group, great. If not, sign up for one because this is the time to do it. You have people that you can talk to about it. Ask your team lead. Ask your person who's carpooling with you. Ask anyone. And we will get to them through the series. But let's talk about us. Let's just flag some stuff that is in us first. Deal with ourselves first. So let's open up the Bible because I'm 20 minutes in and I haven't even opened up the Bible yet. I apologize. John 15, verse 9 to 13. So flick over to it or iPhone your way to John 15, 9 to 13. So this is Jesus talking. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. So Jesus is saying, I love you. As much as the Father has loved me, I love you. And now my command from that is to remain in my love. Great. Love it, Jesus. So good. Okay, how do I remain in your love then? If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love. Okay, cool. So I don't just get to just remain in Jesus' love. I actually have to keep his commands first in order to remain in his love. So to keep my commands, you remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. So he's setting the example for us. And then he goes on to say, I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. I don't know about you, but there's been so many times where I have felt like my joy is not complete inside of me. I have not felt joy. I've been lacking joy. And it's funny how he says here that the answer to that is actually to remain in his love by following his commands, not just by finding happiness. That's how we find joy, by following his commands. And then in 12, so you're like, okay, cool. All right, I want to remain in your love. I want to follow your commands. I want my joy to be complete. So what is the command? And he lays it out. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for one's friends. That sounds really familiar, doesn't it? Our life is not ours, it's God's. Love each other as I have loved you. Lay down one's life for one's friends. And then I'm going to quickly talk a little bit from Philippians as well, but you can throw it up on the screen. There's no need to go there. But it talks a little bit in depth as well about what this kind of love looks like and how to do relationships. And it says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but rather in humility value others above yourselves. So it kind of goes hand in hand with how do you actually lay down your life for someone? How do you actually lay down our lives for our friends? We do it by not being in selfish ambition or in vain conceit. And so we could very easily look at these things and go, totally, I know so many people like that. I know so many people that are really selfish in relationships. I know so many people who are very conceitful in relationships. I'm so glad that you are preaching this message for them. This scripture isn't in the Bible for one or two people that need to hear it. It's in there because we all need to hear it. I need to hear it every day. I am a very selfish person. The only reason that I'm not is because Jesus has asked me not to be. I don't want to not be. I only want to not be because he tells me that I shouldn't be. Naturally, I'm selfish, and I would agree that probably most of you are too. Okay? So some big questions that I want you to ask yourselves, which I ask myself, and it's hard to hear sometimes. Number one, what's it like to be married to me? Is a great question. What is it like to be married to me? What is it like to be my friend? And what is it like for me that could be different to you? What is it like to be mothered by me? So these are three questions that I ask myself to help myself be a better version of myself, but relate it to whatever season of life you're in. Another question, am I prepared to lay down my life for my friends, my family, or my spouse? And so the best way to do that is through these 2 points. And I do want to let you know this is an encouraging message. I'm very sorry if you don't feel encouraged right now. But I do promise you that when we deal with ourselves, when we sort out all of our own junk, and we deal with some of our selfishness and some of our insecurities and some of our stuff, our relationships are so much better for it. It is encouraging message, I promise you. So number one, the best way that we can lay down our lives for our friends, for our relationships, is we lay down selfishness. Like I said, I can be so selfish, and I bet that you can too. I am going to let you in on a couple of little stories through this that so you can just see, that like you're not the only one that deals with stuff. And to throw myself under the bus first, so then hopefully you can also then let yourself be vulnerable and open. But I'll tell you one way that I'm selfish out of the thousands of ways that I'm selfish. One way that I'm selfish is that I really, really, really appreciate a clean home. Like, really appreciate a clean home. Never thought that I would, but I do. With 3 children and a husband, there's something that's very stressful about a messy home, and so my control freak nature comes out in needing the house to be clean. If the house is clean, I can control everything if I can control my environment, okay? Completely unbiblical, but I'm just letting you in on some of my thought process. And so it can be completely to the detriment of my family. Now get this, I have a really bad tendency to also use my selfishness and paint it as this beautiful picture of me caring for my family and that it's so selfless of me. There might even be things in you that you think you're being selfless, but it's actually selfish. My family couldn't care less if they lived in a pigsty and couldn't find things. They wouldn't care. They might not be able to find something, but you know what? If they couldn't find something, they'd only be upset because they would have a stressed out me who's like, I can't believe you can't find it. They wouldn't care. They'd just pitter-patter around and find it slowly and it would be fine. So the idea of a clean home is actually quite selfish on me. So I don't know what it is for you. I paint you a nice silly example because I'm sure that there's heavier examples in our lives as well. But just make some light of it. But what is it? Have a think. If you can't think of something, I bet you that if you ask Jesus, he'll help you highlight something of somewhere that we can lay down just a little bit of our selfishness, just a little bit at a time. So I ask you to highlight it. So some questions you can ask. Where am I putting my needs and wants above others? Or am I putting their needs and wants above mine? In my relationships, am I in them for what I can get out of them? Or am I in them for what I can give into them? Is a good question to ask. Selfishness can be really tangible, like I shared. It can be really tangible, like expectations on what someone should be doing or how somebody can be helping you. But the truth is that selfishness can actually be incredibly intangible. So it can be expectations on people to treat us a certain way. So selfishness could actually be expectations that I put on my husband to be a certain way towards me to make me feel better about myself. It's an intangible expectation, emotional expectation to fulfill my selfishness. How about this? If you're in a relationship here, friends, married, whatever, I bet you've had this situation happen before where you've come home from work and you've chatted with somebody, probably your spouse, and you've had a bad day and they've had a bad day. Okay? Sometimes you have a bad day and you come home and that person makes you feel better about it. And sometimes they have a bad day and you've had a great day. And so you're able to make them feel better about it. But what happens when you come home and you both have a bad day? Has anyone else been in that situation? Or is it just me and Sam because we're the only imperfect people, yeah? Okay, you get into that situation and you're like, yeah, but you don't understand. I've had a bad day and I need you to look after me right now. I need you to tell me that like everything's gonna be okay. No, but you don't understand. My day was worse and I just can't right now. That's my line always. I just can't right now. And then you have these two negative things working against each other of selfishness. Who's the first one that says, you know what? It doesn't matter about my bad day. You had a bad day, and I'm going to lay down what I am going through right now, and I'm going to help you. This is real talk. This is real. It happens. It's life. So I don't know how it's playing out in your relationship. I know how it plays out in mine to certain extents, but God is so good to show me more ways that I'm selfish every day, so I'm really thankful for that. But why don't we, I'm going to pray later, but why don't you ask Jesus this week? Why don't you even ask your spouse or ask your Connect leader? Ask Jesus as well, if you're not comfortable with that. What are ways that I have been selfish in my relationships that you would like me to be more selfless in? It's a great question to ask. Number 2, Real talk. Relationships. We're going real. Really, really real. I'm not just making it spiritual, like Jesus will bless you with a great life and a great relationship. He will, but there's like work that we need to do in ourselves, okay? It doesn't just happen. Number 2, the next way, so there's just two main ways. We lay down selfishness. Number 2, we lay down our pride. Now, chances are, if you are somebody who in that last section was like, yeah, great, that's a great point for somebody else, then this one is probably for you. You probably have a little bit of pride just rising up in there. We need to lay down our pride. So in that verse, it says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves. Conceit actually is an excessively favorable opinion of one's own ability, importance, and wit. So when I thought of conceit, and maybe this is the way you thought of conceit, I kind of thought that it looked like that person that looks in the mirror and just like talks himself up a real big game. Like, yeah, look at me, I'm awesome. Like the Ron Burgundy, like, come and see how good I look. Like just so conceited and like proud of themselves. But yet God showed me actually how conceit plays out in my life. And I guess it probably plays out similarly to this in a lot of other people's lives as well. It comes out in our thoughts, in our opinions, and in our rights. So we believe conceitfully that we have the right opinion or that we have the right way to do something. Whether this is in our workplace, whether this is in our friendships, whether this is in our spousal relationships, family, mother, father, son, daughter, all of that. Perhaps we think that we have the right way and other people have the wrong way of doing something. Maybe we think that our thoughts are the correct ones and that people who think differently are wrong. That's actually quite prideful in ourselves when we believe that way. Maybe we think that those other people that might be wrong, or they're uneducated, or we judge them as being unempathetic if they think differently to the way we think. Another way that it can come out is that we can think that we deserve something better than what we're currently experiencing. I deserve that you treat me better. Do we? Do we deserve that? Are we not all sinners? Have we not all fallen short? We label ourselves as better and others at worse, which I have found myself doing this. Like, please hear me. I am preaching to myself as much as I'm preaching to you guys. I'm letting you into how I deal with my own stuff, and hopefully that will help you deal with some of your stuff as well. Because you can see this pride and this conceit rise up even in cancel culture of, no, we are right, you are wrong, and therefore you do not deserve to have a voice anymore. It's very dangerous. But what if, this is the question, what if the way we're doing life isn't the perfect way, and someone else may actually point out a problem that will help us? Are we able to hear that as people? Is somebody allowed to say that? Unfortunately, not a lot in this culture. Okay, so I went a little bit heavy. So let me make it a little bit light to show you where I have pride. Okay? This is a very weird place that I have pride, is I'm very weirdly prideful about my ability to do laundry. Okay? Yeah, there's a few awkward laughs. I get it. You don't know whether to laugh because you're like, I just feel so like I'm being told off by my mum right now and I don't know if I'm allowed to. You're allowed to laugh, okay? It's okay. I get it. I am prideful about my laundry. Now, I am very, very weird and ridiculous about my laundry, about how it must be done. And there is a right way to do laundry, and there is a wrong way to do laundry. And I'm very prideful of that fact. And I apologize to everybody in this room, but I have probably judged you if you cannot get on top of your laundry. I am so sorry about that. I have this weird pride of like, if you can't get on top of your laundry, there is something wrong with you. But there is nothing wrong with you. I am very sorry. That is my own weird cancel culture problems that I am dealing with. I get so prideful over my laundry that I tell people off about it. I went to Calgary not that long ago and my poor poor mum, I told her off about how she was doing laundry because she didn't use dryer sheets. And I was like, what is wrong with you? There is a right way to do laundry, and you must put a dryer you need to put the dryer sheet in there, otherwise it is wrong. And then I went to check the lint filter, and it was like full, and I was horrified. She could have done something completely horrific if you had seen my shock and horror. I'm like, what are you doing with this? I was so cheeky, so I'm like, what are you doing? Planning on making a sweater out of the lint? You have to clean this stuff out. You're going to cause a fire. There is a right way to do it. My dad was like, okay, calm down. She's okay. My poor mum, she actually had no idea because dryers are not a thing in Australia. So we don't grow up with dryers in Australia, and she's new to Canada. So I felt bad. I ended up apologizing to her later. Anyway, weirdly prideful about my laundry. But how does it play out in my relationships? Because there are things that I am seriously prideful about that I probably wouldn't share with you up on stage here. Because I'm vulnerable, but I'm not going to share some of that stuff. And some of the stuff I bet you are dealing with as well. There is some pride in you that you believe that there's a right way to do something and a wrong way to do something. And God's probably bringing it to the surface right now, and you're probably a little bit uncomfortable because I know the feeling. I feel it all the time. And when the main problem with pride is actually how we approach relationships. So we can be prideful on our own, and it's probably not going to make that much of a problem, but it's when pride gets into relationships, it really affects it. So what happens is when pride comes in, we can either come into the relationship thinking that we know better, and so then we automatically can come in and insert ourselves above somebody and speak down to them, rather than coming under in humility and humbling ourselves, rather than asking questions, asking, how can I help you? How can I serve you in this scenario? We can come in and just telling them everything to do. And we can, other ways that we can come in with pride, which happens a lot in marriage relationships, is when there's pride involved, actually what disappears is empathy and humility. When there's pride and empathy can't occupy the same space. Because empathy recognizes what somebody is struggling with, and your heart goes to them. But when there is pride there, you see what they're struggling with, and you disregard it because you believe that either you wouldn't struggle with it that way, or you would handle it differently, or they're not handling it the right way. So empathy and pride can't actually go hand in hand. And so I've seen this play out in so many ways, in marriages, in friendships, unfortunately even in church. And this may be too far for me to say, but it's something that has really hurt my heart, is when I have heard one person say about somebody else that they have cared for somebody more than somebody else has. The very fact that that has been said shows that there is not true care. Because there's not true empathy for what somebody is going through. And there is a pride in somebody who believes that they did something the right way and somebody else did the wrong way. There's no empathy for any understanding about why that other person may not have cared. It's broken my heart because some of the scenarios where I've heard this, I know what the person who supposedly didn't care is going through. And it breaks my heart that somebody could say that they don't care when I know the weight of the world that is on their shoulders, and I know the conversations that they have had with me, and I know how much their heart has broken over something. And yet pride gets in, and it turns us against each other instead of turning us for each other. And so I want to see us all free from it. And I'm passionate about it because I struggle with it too. I'm not just telling you guys off. It is something that I have to deal with in myself every single day. So without humility, which Christ gives us, which is beautiful and it's amazing, without that humility, we can't have true empathy, true care, or true love. It needs humility. And I love that Jesus is so good that he can come in and he can deal with all of our junk, all of our humanness, all of our brokenness, and he can fill us with peace. He can fill us with humility. He can fill us with empathy. He can heal broken relationships. He can heal strained relationships. All it needs is just this breath of Jesus and this humbling of ourselves. It truly is the answer to so many broken relationships in our life. Humility and letting Jesus in. If there's one thing that you take away from this, it's humility, humbling ourselves, and letting Jesus into it. So, yeah, thank you. So, I feel like I've come down maybe a little bit harsh on you. I assure you that the rest of the relationship series will be fun. But I wanted us to deal with ourselves first, because there's absolutely no point in me coming up here and saying, here are the 3 best ways to reignite your relationship with your spouse, because none of that is going to help if we don't deal with ourselves first. And I believe if we can deal with our selfishness, and if we can deal with our pride, and we can let some humility in there and let some Jesus in there, we'll see some incredible healing take place over this month within ourselves, within our friendships, within our marriages, within our parental relationships, our children. We're going to see some big differences, even in workplaces. Even workplace relationship tension can be fixed very much the same way. So we can't do any of this without Jesus. None of it. We can't fix ourselves. We can't make everything better in our own regard. All we can do is humble ourselves and let Jesus work through it. Jesus is the answer to it. So I'm actually going to ask right now, if everybody just closes your eyes across the room and bows your head, we're going to have just a teeny kind of little bit of ministry time in your seats. But the first thing that I want to ask is, it's been 86 weeks of rough relationships, maybe great relationships, but there would have been tension in these 86 weeks. And perhaps within all of that, you have drifted away from Jesus. You've walked away. Perhaps you haven't even met him before, and this is kind of like, I'm back at church, I'm meeting him for the first time. I want to give you the opportunity right now, as everybody has their head bowed and their eyes closed, I want to give you the opportunity to begin a relationship with Jesus, because that is the very core thing that makes everything else better and work. It's the main thing. It's the thing that matters the most. And so right now, as I'm sharing, I just want you, with everybody's head bowed, everybody's eyes closed, if you want to start that relationship with Jesus, or you want to restart that relationship because you've drifted in this last little while, I want to ask you to be brave and raise your hand right now in this room with everybody's heads bowed and eyes closed. There's 1 hand over there, there's 2, there's 3. I can't see you all properly, but once you've raised your hand, you can put it down. There's another one over here, there's 4, 5, 6 in the back over there. I just want to let you know you're not alone. That's why we count hands. We want to make sure that you don't feel like you are singled out. Nobody is looking around. If there is anybody else, I'm just going to wait like 10 more seconds. Just raise your hand if that's you want to start that relationship with Jesus. Awesome. Yeah, I see your hand. You can put it down. So good. Well, you know what? What we're going to do right now is I'm actually going to ask everybody to stand up. And we're going to say this prayer together, and then I'm also going to pray over everybody as well. Because relationships matter. Relationships are a big deal. And I don't know, there's a part of me, because maybe I didn't get that as many people shouting me down. We've been watching Ted Lasso, and he's like, I can't hear your nods. Maybe a lot of you were nodding through it, and you were agreeing with me, but I kind of feel like, I don't know, I feel like I preached something that was just, it was good. We need to hear it. Anyway, we are going to be starting a relationship with Jesus for these people that have raised their hands. So we're going to say a prayer right now. And if that was you that raised your hand, I encourage you that this prayer is between you and Jesus. You're not praying it to me. This is you praying it to him, because prayer is communication between you and Jesus. And so why don't you just repeat after me, and everybody in the room will repeat together. Say, Dear Jesus, I invite you into my heart right now. I ask you to set me free from everything in my past. I repent and I walk with you. I acknowledge that you're my Father, you're my Lord, and you died on the cross to set me free. I thank you that today I am saved. Amen. Amen. Well, why don't we just praise Jesus for those decisions? So good. It is the best decision that you will ever make in your life. Not the easiest decision, because now walking it out, you're going to hit some rocky patches, I can assure you. But it is the best, absolute best decision that you will ever make in your life. And so I think Pastor Jerry will share with you a little bit about what you can do if that was you. And if that was you online as well, you can press that I raise my hand button. And so then we can make sure that you are also looked after and you can ask any questions that you need to, and you have people that you can journey this out with. And so what I'm going to do right now actually is I just want to pray over all of you because I feel like I kind of jabbed kind of a knife into the center of some of our owies. And so I just want to make sure that as you go out of here, you're not owie from Jess, but that Jesus is in that owie to help now deal with ourselves. So, Lord, I just thank you for every single person in this room, Lord. I thank you that we get to meet together again, that we get to be here in your presence, we get to celebrate you. And I thank you, Lord, that you care so deeply for every single person in this room. I thank you that you know intimately the relationship dynamics that every single one of us are facing. And I thank you that you have the answers. I thank you that in the areas that we need to change and that we need to improve, that you will give us your strength, that you will highlight those areas, Lord, that you will give us the wisdom to be able to outwork that, Father. And I thank you that your healing power is on all of those things that are completely out of our control, Lord. I thank you that your grace covers things, that your love covers things, that your peace covers things, Lord. And I thank you that you are a good